Father's Day morning. That's when my own daughter stood on the front porch of my home, the home I built with 40 years of sweat and sacrifice, and said, "You don't need this place anymore. Dad, you're old. You're alone." 5 days later, I nearly lost everything. My estate, my accounts, my legal identity. All because of one forged signature and a plan they thought I'd never see coming. I'm Dr. Harold Green, 68 years old, a retired heart surgeon, widower, quiet man. I spent most of my life cutting open chests to save lives, and now I was being carved out of my own. If you've ever been blindsided by your own blood, drop your city in the comments. Subscribe, because you're about to see what happens when they push the wrong man too far. Let me take you back. It started with a strange envelope I found tucked under my study door. Plain. White. No stamp. No return address. Just 3 red words stamped across the front. Medical capacity evaluation. You are gent. I opened it. Inside was a letter stating I had early onset dementia, signed by a therapist I had never met. Attached, a power of attorney form I never signed, or so I thought. Later that week, a ring alert pinged my phone at 3:43 in the morning. It showed someone creeping through my office, and by Friday, a Chase Bank alert informed me that a new phone number had been added to my account. By then, the pieces were snapping together fast. But let me back up, because this didn't start on Father's Day. This started 3 years ago when my wife died and I stopped being dad and became a target. Part 2, Sacrifice and Golden Child Setup Intro. Looking back now, it's easy to spot the signs. I just didn't want to believe them. My daughter Melissa had always been the golden child. Charming, outgoing, lived for Instagram stories and birthday brunches. I used to tell myself she was just modern. But now I know better. I spent nearly 4 decades in cardiac surgery, first in Boston, then Miami, and finally retired in Naples, Florida. I missed Thanksgivings. I missed birthdays. There's even a Christmas where I was elbow deep in a triple bypass while my family opened presents without me. I did it all so she could have more than I ever did. Private school, summer camps, horseback lesson, even her second wedding in Cabo. I footed the bill, $82,000, no questions asked. And when my wife passed, I gave Melissa space. I let her grieve in her own way. But she didn't grieve. She moved in slowly. A weekend visit turned into a full week. The kids started leaving backpacks in the hallway. Her husband started working remotely from my dining room table. I thought I was giving them comfort. But now I realize they were scouting my life, my patterns, my weaknesses. They weren't moving in to help. They were moving in to replace me. At first, it felt harmless. Melissa said she just needed a few weeks to clear her head after a rough patch with Chad. Their lease was up. The kids were switching schools. The timing lined up. I didn't ask too many questions. I was still grieving Marianne back then, still adjusting to silence in a house built for 2. So when Melissa offered to cook dinner, help with laundry, run errands, I thought, maybe this was her way of reconnecting, being the daughter I remembered. But slowly, things shifted. She started making changes without asking. Moved my favorite armchair out of the living room to open the space. Replaced the artwork Marianne and I had chosen with her own canvas prints. Put a whiteboard on the fridge labeled Weekly Household Needs, as if it wasn't already my house. Chad, meanwhile, found ways to stay productive. He started using my home office for his podcast. Ordered microphones, cameras, even a neon wall sign that said Dad Life Unfiltered. He wasn't working. He was branding himself. Every other day, I'd hear him upstairs, yelling into a mic about being a self-made entrepreneur while sipping espresso from a mug I bought 25 years ago. And they're kids. Good kids. Don't get me wrong, but Melissa and Chad didn't parent. They negotiated. which meant I became the default babysitter while they went to brunches, spas, or content shoots. Still, I said nothing, because for most of my life, silence was survival. As a surgeon, you learn to keep your emotions in check, to think through chaos, to respond with precision, not volume. And that habit carried into fatherhood. When Melissa asked to borrow the car for a weekend getaway, I handed over the keys. When Chad's crypto startup ran into cash flow issues, I wrote them a $30,000 check. When the kids accidentally scratched my antique dining table with markers, I just turned the tablecloth the other way. I wanted peace. I convinced myself this was temporary, that they were just going through a rough patch, that the house was big enough for all of us until they figured things out. But they weren't figuring anything out. They were settling in, and I was slowly being pushed out of my own life. I should have known something was wrong the night I found Melissa in my study alone, sorting through my filing cabinet. She jumped when I walked in. "Oh, sorry. Dad. I was just looking for that old photo album of Grandma's." But her hands weren't holding any photo albums. She was holding my medical binder, the one labeled wills, trusts, and power of attorney. That night, I couldn't sleep, because suddenly, every request, every moment that felt off, every overly sweet smile, it all started to look like strategy, not affection. And the house that was once my retirement sanctuary was starting to feel like a stage takeover. The thing about gut instincts, they usually whisper before they shout. Mine started whispering louder after that night. I caught Melissa rummaging through my legal drawer. But what turned it into a full-on alarm was a strange alert on my phone, something I'd never seen before. 3:43 a.m. A ring notification. Motion detected in the study. I was upstairs asleep. Melissa and Chad had said they were driving to Orlando that weekend for a collab shoot. They weren't supposed to be home. So why was someone in my office? I opened the video. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. Someone in a hoodie, gloves on, no light. They moved with confidence. Didn't hesitate. Went straight for the bottom drawer where I kept my original power of attorney documents, the ones Marianne and I signed after her diagnosis. They took a manila folder, paused, then reached into their pocket and slid in a new one. It was quick, practiced, like they'd done it before. The moment I paused the clip and zoomed in on the side profile, my stomach flipped. It was Melissa. There was no doubt. That tilt of her head, the way she brushed her bangs behind her ear. She did it the same way when she was 5 and nervous before a piano recital. But now, she was nervous, robbing her own father blind. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I walked downstairs that morning like nothing had happened. She was back in the kitchen, barefoot, humming, flipping pancakes for the kids. "Sleep, okay." "Dad," she smiled. I nodded, sat down at the breakfast nook, and tried to focus on the sound of the koi pond bubbling outside instead of the thudding in my chest. Later that day, I went to retrieve my safe key from the back of my closet, opened it, checked the fireproof case where I keep the most sensitive files. The original power of attorney documents were gone. In their place, a new folder with a newer form dated 3 weeks ago. Signed, notarized, except my name was spelled wrong. Harold Green. A teeny mistake, but enough to expose the lie, and the signature, wobbly, slanted like someone trying to copy cursive from memory. It didn't even come close to my usual stroke. That's when the whisper became a scream. I called my attorney, Daniel Russo, immediately. He drove down from Miami the next morning. We laid every document out on the dining table, one by one. Daniel said nothing for the first 10 minutes. Just kept flipping. Finally, he looked up. "Harold, how long have Melissa and Chad been living here?" He hesitated. "Since spring." He nodded slowly. "We've got a problem." Daniel did a quick background asset check, something he could do through internal channels. That's when he found it. Over the last 14 months. A series of small transfers, $5,000 here. $9,000. There had been moved out of my Fidelity retirement account. Each transaction routed through a new joint trust account. Guess whose names were on it? Melissa Green and Chad Reynolds. The total? $243,000. Gone. I remember standing there, my hand still resting on the back of the dining chair. Completely still, while Daniel read the numbers out loud like they were diagnoses. I had been robbed. By my own child. And this time, there was no surgery that could fix it. It's a strange thing watching your own child lay a trap and realizing you walked right into it. The morning after Daniel uncovered the $243,000 in unauthorized transfers, he showed up at my door, holding a manila envelope. His face tight. I did some digging. He said, and it's worse than we thought. We sat in my study. The same one Melissa had tiptoed into at 3 a.m. like it belonged to her. Daniel laid out the plan in 3 layers. Surface level first. Melissa and Chad had filed for durable power of attorney, meaning full control over my medical and financial decisions. They claimed I was showing signs of early onset cognitive decline. They cited forgetfulness, missed prescriptions, said I repeated stories, lost track of appointments, things that happen to anyone over 65 if you cherry-pick the moments. Included in the filing was a medical evaluation written by a licensed therapist named Dr. Jenna Cross. I had never met her, never spoken to her. Daniel confirmed she was Melissa's old college roommate. Fake signature, fake diagnosis, all designed to prove I was mentally unfit to manage my own affairs. That was layer 1, the official story. Layer 2, the co-conspirators. The notary on the power of attorney formed Chad's older brother, registered in Tampa. His signature had been logged on 3 separate filings connected to my estate, each notarized without me in the room. The bank trust opened by a friend of Chad's who worked at a credit union in Clearwater, and that mysterious envelope marked urgent medical evaluation. Melissa admitted to dropping it off herself under the door when she thought I was napping. It was all carefully stitched together. But Daniel caught something else. Layer 3, the timeline. This didn't start with a casual signature or a midnight impulse. It began almost exactly 2 weeks after Marianne's funeral. Daniel traced the earliest financial activity to that summer. Small automatic transfers from my accounts labeled as healthcare support and asset restructuring. Each one under $10,000, just low enough to avoid triggering fraud alerts. The vacation in Bali paid in part through my long-term care fund. The Tesla lease, pulled from my medical account, filed under mobility support. And every time I asked a question, Melissa had a story ready. Oh, Dad, that's just for the kids' health insurance. Don't worry. I'm keeping everything organized. You signed off on that. Remember. And maybe I believed her because I wanted to. I wanted to believe my daughter would never steal from me. That my late wife hadn't raised someone capable of orchestrating a full-blown financial coup, but the evidence didn't lie. And neither did the ring footage. Later that night, I replayed it again. Melissa, gloves on, calm, focused. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't desperate. She was confident. That hit me harder than anything else, because that meant she didn't think I'd ever fight back. That was her biggest mistake. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anyone out. I didn't even raise my voice. I did what I was trained to do. I treated it like a crisis in the operating room. Stay focused. Work the problem. Step by step. The first thing I did was meet with Daniel and draft an emergency injunction to be filed with the Collier County Probate Court. We attached the ring footage, the forged documents, and the fake evaluation from Melissa's friend posing as a medical professional. By noon the next day, the judge issued a temporary suspension of the forged power of attorney. That meant Melissa and Chad were legally cut off from making decisions on my behalf, medical, financial, or otherwise. Step 1. Done. Next. We needed proof of where the money went. Enter Janine, a forensic accountant Daniel recommended. She had the kind of cold, steady calm that reminded me of seasoned nurses in the OR. In just 3 days, Janine tracked every cent of the $243,000 that had been siphoned out of my Fidelity accounts. She laid it all out for me on a spreadsheet color-coded, line by line. $21,000 to a private preschool, $16,000 for a Tesla lease, $8,000 to a luxury spa membership under Melissa's name, over $35,000 for international travel, Bali, Costa Rica, Paris, all labeled wellness or family support. There were Venmo transactions from my account to Chad's personal PayPal, Amazon charges under my name, monthly withdrawals disguised as estate maintenance. I looked at the final column, where Janine had tallied the sum and written it in bold. $243,780. It wasn't just theft. It was premeditated exploitation. Still, I stayed silent, because the best revenge isn't loud, it's legal. While Janine mapped the money trail, Daniel filed for a formal revocation of the power of attorney. We also initiated proceedings to dissolve the trust account Melissa had opened behind my back. Then I called Carlos. Carlos and I go back nearly 20 years. He's a former FBI investigator, now working private security. When I told him what happened, he didn't waste time. Within 24 hours, he had retrieved deleted text messages from Melissa's cloud backups and extracted chats between Chad and his brother, the notary who witnessed my fake signature. One message read, "By the time summer hits, the house'll be in our name. He's too soft to fight it." Another, "Once we get full control, I'm turning the study into a podcast studio." That one got to me, because it wasn't just about money. It was about erasing me, replacing me in my own home, making me a guest in the very place I'd built for my retirement. So I made my next move. I transferred the title of my home into a protected living trust, managed solely by Daniel's firm. I froze all shared accounts and removed access from every device I didn't recognize. And finally, I drafted a letter. Short, precise, effective immediately. Melissa Green and Chad Reynolds are no longer permitted on the premises of the Green residence. Any unauthorized entry will be treated as trespassing under Florida law. Further action will result in criminal prosecution for elder exploitation. I printed 2 copies, hand-delivered one to Melissa. The other, I gave to my HOA. No shouting. No dramatics. Just clean. Legal boundaries. Melissa didn't respond right away, but Chad did. He texted me later that night. "Wow, you really want to make this public? Fine. Let's go to war." I didn't reply. Because we weren't going to war. They'd already lost. They just didn't know it yet. The thing about fighting with family is, it's never just legal, it's emotional. Messy. And everyone thinks they're the hero. Melissa and Chad didn't back down. Within 48 hours, I was served with a counterclaim. They accused me of abusive control and mental decline. Chad even recorded a video ranting about toxic parents and uploaded it to his followers. The comments were full of strangers judging my life, but I didn't engage. I let Daniel and the evidence do the talking. On a humid Thursday morning, we walked into Collier County Probate Court. Melissa arrived, flanked by Chad and 2 attorneys I'd never met. She looked like she hadn't slept. Across the aisle, I had Daniel, Janine, and Carlos, each of them calm, prepared, and carrying thick folders. The judge, a woman named Harmon, set the tone. "We are here to determine the validity of these documents and the allegations of elder exploitation." Daniel started by presenting the ring footage, Melissa entering my study at 3:43 in the morning with gloves on. He showed the fake therapist's evaluation, the bank records, the digital trail left by Chad's brother, the notary, and the text messages. Janine broke down the money trail, line by line. making it clear I hadn't authorized a single transfer. Melissa's lawyers tried to argue mental decline, but every claim fell apart when I took the stand and answered every question with clarity. Dates, details, and calm composure. I could feel Melissa shrinking in her chair every time the judge asked her to explain a transaction or a signature. After 2 days of testimony, Judge Harmon spoke plainly. This is not a misunderstanding between family members. This is deliberate exploitation and fraud. The power of attorney is revoked. All trust accounts are dissolved. Melissa Green and Chad Reynolds are ordered to return $243,780 to Dr. Slash Green within 60 days, or felony charges will be filed. Melissa stared at the table. Chad's face was red. Yafset. But that wasn't the end of it. Janine had also forwarded Chad's texts and video rants to his biggest sponsorship partner. Within a week, his dad influencer accounts lost all their brand deals. The story spread on parenting blogs and watchdog accounts. Clips of him joking about tricking the old man got thousands of angry comments. The so-called brand he'd built disappeared almost overnight. A few days later, Melissa showed up at my door. No makeup, hair unwashed, carrying her youngest on her hip. Her eyes were puffy, exhausted. Desperate. She tried one last time. Dad, I know you're angry, but we're family. You can't really cut us out. You can't do this to your grandchildren. I looked at her, really looked. The daughter I'd raised. The one I'd protected for so long. The one who'd chosen greed over love. I spoke quietly. Melissa, you did this to yourself. I didn't cut you out. You stepped outside this family the minute you stole from me. If you want to see your kids, you know the rules. But you're not welcome in my home until you make things right. She cried then. Not loud, just silent tears rolling down her cheeks. She turned and walked away, her child clinging to her arm. That was the hardest door I've ever closed. But some doors need to stay closed. For everyone's sake. 6 months later, my world feels brand new. The koi pond in the backyard is blooming again. The sun comes in through the kitchen window, warming the yellow walls that Marianne always dreamed of. I wake up every morning and paint one. My coffee steaming in the quiet. My friends visit for lunch. Laughter fills the rooms that were once so tense. Melissa and Chad, we barely speak. I see the grandkids at the park sometimes. Supervised. Safe. Boundaries clear. It's not perfect, but it is peaceful. I've learned that family is not just blood. It's those who respect your boundaries, who show up for you without strings attached. Looking back, I know I did the right thing. Dignity, trust, and peace are worth more than any account balance. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself, even when it hurt, you know what I mean. Would you have pressed charges? Drop your answer in the comments. And remember, sometimes choosing yourself is the bravest thing you can do.